So I remember that one day, it was right after we sort of had this moment that we decided, hey, we are going to go all in. And you and I think it was Jim Eberlin, our founder, came to me and said, we need to do an event. And I remember vividly trying to downplay it or at least minimize the scope of this thing and say, hey, should we do a launch party in Soma? Is that kind of what you're talking about? But no, you both and both you and Jim were pretty convicted on wanting to host a conference for an industry that didn't even exist yet. Um, and we were still JBera software. We were working through a rebrand, and so we didn't even have a company brand really yet.
We
Uh,
didn't really have a website. We're
but
sort of a kind of a Wix type website or whatever.
exactly,
Yeah.
totally. So I'm curious, and maybe for the marketers in the room that are in the audience who have had a CEO come and ask them to do these big bold things. Why was a major event, let alone an event, the right first move? And maybe from the customer perspective, like why did this matter?
So funny. My memory, which is a memory so fallible, is that you're the one who had the big ambition, and that I was the one who had the smaller ambition. So I think you're probably right about your story. But it's funny. I remember the opposite. But either way, I
Interesting.
think that we definitely had this like tension of, okay, do we want to shoot for something small, a kind of more intimate thing, or something really big? And I think that it was very unclear because, yeah, I mean, people, if you haven't thrown your first event, you really do have no idea how many people are going to go,
Yeah.
and it's very hard to size and like build a budget and things like that. And later on, you can get this down to more of a science.
Mhm.
So I totally think that we were in two minds about that, and that's actually pretty much. I don't know if this is we'll talk about later, but you came to me with this amazing presentation on the vision. You called it the Gold Rush presentation. I still
Yeah.
remember it well, and it was about this vision of kind of creating a category through events and through community, and
Mhm.
literally it's kind of what we ended up doing. So
Totally.
but I totally agree, like at that moment it was very uncertain, what we
Yeah.
wanted to do and whether it would work and what we should call it. And so if people are like listening, I think that like that is a real moment. And by the way, it doesn't always work out this way. Sometimes it
Yeah.
works out better, sometimes it works out worse. But it was we had no idea. All we knew was there was people called customer success managers, so we thought there
Yeah.
was something there.
Yeah. And I think if I remember, they had like smaller meetups, not
Yeah,
not a
exactly.
conference, but we knew
Right.
they liked to get together in person. We knew
Right.
that they had this hunger for community, and so I think, and maybe it was Jim that was really pushing the high to doing the big event. But I think we said if we can get them all together in a really meaningful way, like you know, and do better perhaps than just a meetup, then maybe that would be something that we can call success. Um, and so I know a lot of folks have asked you this over the years, but how did you guys do Pulse? Events are hard, they're high effort, they're
Yeah.
expensive, months of planning. But we were a team of 25 people at this point, and most of them I think were writing code, and then it was what 5 to 8 of us I think in California. So it wasn't like a
Yeah.
massive team that put this
No.
together. Um, do you why are do events as you look back today um, make an impact that's differentiated than something we can do virtually? Like,
Oh,
why
yeah.
why do we do this?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think the the thing that you and I learned is that like we you build a sense of community, connection, belonging, being part of a movement. Those are things I hear when I hear people going to Pulse and feeling that. Like there's thousands and thousands of people out there who are like, oh my God, I remember my first Pulse, and being in the audience and seeing all those people. I think there is definitely a phenomenon about feeling like you're not alone. You're one
Mhm.
of something that's bigger. And that helps you feel better about what you're doing and feel more confident you can move forward. And we all have that experience in our business lives, right? Where we're like, oh my gosh, am I the only one dealing with this? And then you go to a place where you're like, you use the expression like you're home, right? Like this is
Yeah,
like we would tell people, welcome home, because
yeah,
this is a place where people are thinking like you. And in your own company, you might like be like the only one thinking about this, but in the broader world, there's a lot of people like you. And so I think that as we live in the virtual world now, and with this, pandemic and all that, I think there's ways to do that, but I do think that it's hard to imagine the kind of physicality and the connection that you get by seeing all these people. The core
yeah,
experience is this idea of like the sea of people all like you and hearing all these conversations that are about the things you're thinking about and seeing these presentations about the things that you care about and are interested in, and hearing from people that inspire you, and even the silly stuff, the jokes and the music videos and all the things that are like exactly what you care about, right? So
Yeah.
I think that is the powerful thing about building community, is you get people to feel like, wow, I'm not alone.
Totally. I think that's exactly right. Um, I'm curious. I admit that I sort of blacked this part out because from the moment we said we're going to do this to the day of the show feels like a blur. I mean, it's been several years, but in general, it feels like, we didn't know what this thing would look
Yeah.
like. Right. And we were working hard to make it great. Um, this is kind of a two-part question. The first is like, how did you do you remember how you sort of rallied us to pull off something that seemed kind of impossible, or at least like having this vision of not all of us having like context for what this would look like, but also maybe in the back of your head, what mattered? Like what showed up to the board on the board slides, the quarter after? Was it how many people were there? Was it the experience we created for the customers who were there? Like what were the things that really made this like important as a initiative to you?
Well, it's interesting. I think there's I'll do the second one first and then the first one. The on what mattered, I think that what we think mattered and what actually mattered were probably different. I'm sure we had some slide that said there was this many people here and this was the pipeline in the room, or how many pipeline we created.
Mhm.
What mattered in reality was we brought people together, created a movement, they had a great experience, they thought about how other people should be part of it, they felt more like they belonged, they felt more confident in their job, and that eventually led to many of them buying Gainsight. Right? I bet it'd be
Mhm.
interesting to look at that first 300 people and how many end up becoming customers. That's a
Yeah.
good analysis to do. But it's kind of like one of those things where you look at the micro, and you probably wouldn't capture the picture just saying how much pipeline was created, how many meetings did you have. As you get more mature, we certainly do that analysis. You did that when you were here, Anthony, and
Mhm.
it's good analysis. But I think it always understates the impact of these kind of community movement things.
Mhm.
On how we rallied, it's a great question. I remember the first one is a blur, being honest, May of 2013. It's kind of a blur because I it just kind of happened. Like your team did a lot of work, but it kind of like just it was like so winging it. I remember the second one after we'd done one and sending some kind of an email that was to the effect of like, being a sports fan, this is our Super Bowl. This is like the one day when it all kind of comes together, and for our customers, for our investors, for our team. And over the years, you realize that it really does help all three of those constituents. These events definitely motivate your customers to do more and get more value. They definitely help your investors because it definitely becomes a source of sales and growth. But also helps your team. It's such a rallying event. When we
Totally.
if we measured our teammate engagement right after Pulse, it always goes up every year. And I don't think that's actually just Gainsight. I think that's true for a lot of companies' events. They really are partly about engaging your team.
For sure. I think it's totally right. Um, I want to touch on experience really quick. We both share that desire to create a great experience and not make it an event, just an event. And over the years, I think we've done some pretty crazy things, including Vanilla Ice performance at
Oh,
9 a.m.
still so great.
Still so great. A Disney musical. We did have a long road to that greatness, I'd say. And so, if you remember, year one, our big moment was hiring a stand-up comedian to pretend like he was the
Yes.
CFO of a publicly traded company that will go nameless. And he came up on stage completely deadpan, made up stories about the other presenters and the audience, and it went interesting. I would say I'm curious to get your recollection from it, but uh, why do we do this? Why do we push the box creatively on some of these things? We sell
Yeah, it's
software,
funny.
right?
Yeah, it's funny because one of our values is childlike joy. Bring the kid in you to work every day, and I think both of us just enjoyed bringing that creativity. And I've done some great collaboration together of a comedian, or we had a sing along. As you remember, a surprise sing
Mhm.
along one year. Vanilla Ice, Taylor Swift, impersonator doing a music video we rewrote. The famous rap video inside the studio. Country
Personal
music
favorite.
song. So many, right? And I think it was really a couple of things. One is us scratching our own itch for creativity and fun, and that being a value of Gainsight. But the other thing I think is like it's a way to connect with your customers and connect the community, because it's a lot of this stuff. Just I think marketing. I'm not a professional marketer, but like so much of it is that making the customer and the community feel like, wow, they get me. They
Mhm.
get me. right? That's like, there's an inside joke in a certain community and they know that inside joke.
Yeah.
They know what it's like to be a CSM. We're doing as you know, we also now have a product for product people and we have a conference focused on that.
Mhm.
And we're doing our own, like, okay, what's the version of that for product people? How do we get them to feel like, wow, Gainsight gets me? And so
Yeah.
I'm working on, as you saw a preview of it, I'm working on some stuff there. And so I think that it's like part of it is our own kind of selfish desire to be creative and have fun, and part of it is like, oh, we want our customers to feel like we get them.
Awesome. Totally, totally agree. Um, I'm wondering if there's a moment that happened to you at the conference. So, and again, we're stretching back here to 2013,
Yeah.
but Four Seasons Hotel, Market Street, San Francisco. You know, the the show went great, except with the exception of a fire alarm going off in the middle of a key opening keynote. Um, was there a moment for you there where you looked out into the audience? We had, I think, 300 people there or something
Yep.
our first year, where you're like, my gosh, we might have unlocked something here. And you talked about earlier that something about like it's a rallying call for the team too. So I imagine as a relatively new CEO at
Yep.
Gainsight, at least at that point, like this was probably a lot of emotion of like, okay, the team pulled this off, but then also like, look at all these customers. So I'm curious if there was a moment that stands out to you where it all kind of started clicking.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think each year, when you do big events, you actually get this amazing like snapshot that you can kind of remember forever. And there's so many from every year, from probably the other years of Vanilla Ice. Michael
Mhm.
Lewis being on stage, me
Yeah.
interviewing him, and you and I being backstage right before when actually that Disney musical that we
Yeah.
did redid, and a lot of different things like that. Don't we will not talk about copyrights during this discussion. So
We'll
the
cut that in
the
post.
yeah, exactly. The In that first one though, I do remember I there was a CEO panel at the end, and CEO Box, Zuora, exactly. I think maybe one or two others, Inside View, and we were all in this panel, and I was kind of leading it. And I remember looking at the audience a lot. And actually, what's interesting is people are like, "Oh yeah, that's Nick." It was a little distracting. You kept looking at the audience, right? Because actually, I've done many of these now, and ideally you're actually looking at the people, and the audience is sort of irrelevant. I think I was looking at the audience because, like, holy geez, all these people are here, right?
Yeah,
Like, whoa, all these people are here, and so
totally.
that felt, and now 300 people feels like, oh, there's only 300 people here when we do like a regional event. Okay, fine. I guess we don't have to do anything big, and we still enjoy it, obviously. But and so it becomes relative. But in those early days, I was like, wow, all these people are here for our little event, for our little company. That was pretty
Totally.
cool.
Totally cool. Well, we know that over the years, the first event basically became the proof point and
Yeah.
the basis for our entire marketing strategy. Just 6 years later, we'd have over 6,000 people at Moscone Center, conferences in London and Australia, local chapters of Pulse Local in over 50 cities around the globe. And more than that, this customer success thing that we sort of, followed our conviction on, went all in on, has become a movement. And LinkedIn continues to validate that with their economic graph data, the economic graph reports that CSMs, customer success managers, are one of the fastest growing professions in the world. So we see that taking sort of a guess in 2013, an educated guess, led to something pretty profound. I'm curious, what has been the impact of Pulse over the years? And I'm curious on three different dimensions: on the team who worked on it. Maybe I can even speak to that a little bit. On Gainsight and its mission, and on you personally.
So it's all three. I mean, it's definitely been, you go to the list of things that are the most important to Gainsight history. It's number one for sure. And it's the impact is, I kind of think when you have a new category, a lot of that kind of category is about creating the category and convincing people that there's something here. Like, is there something here? You're a person at a big company and you just create a CSM team and you're not sure if there's something here. And you go to Pulse and you're like, oh yeah, there's something here. These other people couldn't be wrong. You're an executive whose team asked you to come to Pulse and check it out. They want to buy this software called Gainsight. You never heard of it before. Wow, there's something here. You're a investor who's thinking about investing. Maybe one of our investors doing diligence, and wow, there's something here, So I think that's like a big part of it from a business perspective is convincing people there's something here and aligning them on what the future looks like. And over the years, then differentiating your business and stuff like that too, right? Why Gainsight? I think on the team side, it is an unbelievable proof point of all your hard work on one day. Like it all kind of comes together. And it's sort of we all know that like things that like feel meaningful are ones that you work really hard at, particularly with a team. And when it works, it's just the results are amazing. You and I would do these celebrations afterwards where we just get into some bar somewhere with the whole team and you'd be shouting out all the highlights and then you could go on for hours and
Yeah.
people's voices were gone because you couldn't talk anymore because you had so many presentations and we're out of energy, but we feel so great. And I remember those so well, some of the
So well.
highlighted moments. And I think the team just kind of felt like they grew so much in one day, and people had chances to speak in the biggest stages they've ever spoken at, and thousands of people. And so I think that in the team, it's just so clear. And then yeah, for CEO, I mean, how it is. It's actually really hard to just keep going and the energy because it's just super hard, and it's hard for everyone, by the way. So it's no, I mean, CEOs are very privileged and lucky and tons of benefits, but it's hard to like keep going with the company. Well, anyone in a company, it's hard, right? But a CEO,
Mm.
theoretically, you probably are one of the people that go the furthest, the longest, if you're fortunate enough, right? And a journey is pretty lonely at the end and stuff. And so that conference becomes this like embodiment of, okay, wow, there's something worth fighting for. So I think it does
Awesome.
touch all three of those stakeholders.
Totally. Um, that resonates with me so much. I mean, we call this podcast the heart of business, which I define as when companies, that space where companies and customers really connect. And for me, I kind of view Pulse as the heart of Gainsight's business in that sense. Obviously the product is a big part of it. The everything that the value that we've created for customers, kind of from that perspective. But I really do think about it as the heart of the business, and that's something that has impacted me profoundly in my career. And as I think back to some of the best kind of highlights of my career, almost all of them have something to do with the time at Pulse. All right, we have one more segment to get to, Nick. We call this the speed
Awesome.
round. So uh, we're gonna we're gonna have 5 seconds or less. We'll give you 5 seconds or less to answer each of the following questions. Um, you ready?
Let's go.
All right. The best book you've read recently.
Okay, I this year has been my one of my goals given quarantine was read a lot. So I've read 34 books this year so far, which is
Whoa.
pretty cool. So that's been great. I will say, okay, I'm going to give you three. I'm going to cheat. Um, Super Forecasters, which is all about how you can kind of do a better job of making great predictions,
Okay.
and how people that are really good at predictions can make great ones. So that's kind of very practically useful. Um, I read a book called The Case Against Reality. A view into my mind. It's about whether there's anything real here or whether there's something that's beyond us that we can't perceive from a science perspective. It's a very interesting science read. And then I will say the one actually I don't think Anthony you would have heard about this yet. We have 14-year-old, 11-year-old, 8-year-old. My 14-year-old is an aspiring author. So the best book I read this
Oh,
year is the first novel that she wrote that she gave me the draft of, which is called
wow.
Every String, and it's a pretty amazing to see the kid that you helped make write a book. It's not published yet or anything, but I think hopefully I think it will be, and it's pretty amazing.
That's
So
incredible. It's a unbelievable answer. I don't even know I can't even imagine as a father of two myself seeing our children do something like that. So that's incredible. That was much more than 5 seconds though. So we're gonna restart the
okay,
speed round
all right, let's
right
do
now
go
on
back
the
to
last
speed.
ones.
All
Favorite
right,
podcast.
Sean Carroll is a physicist, does a podcast called Mindscape.
Awesome. Work from home or work from the office.
Work from home and hopefully get to do this a lot going forward. I like it.
Awesome. Favorite purchase that you made during quarantine.
Um, DSLR camera I'm trying to set up right now. Not set
Nice.
up yet. I'm working on it.
And finally, the brand that you admire the most or company that you admire the most.
Southwest Airlines because it's a tough business and their employees seem to like working there.
All right, and finally, Nick, just to end on this, uh, as a customer yourself, what's the most memorable interaction that you've ever had or that you can remember with a company?
Um, I will give a extremely stereotypical answer for a Silicon Valley CEO and say the first time I drove my Tesla. So
Awesome.
Tesla is a pretty remarkable reinvention of a car. Now a lot of other electric cars are out there, but integrated experience end to end. That's one of the gold standards out there.
Awesome. Well, Nick, it means so much that you were on this. Thank you, thank you, thank you for reminiscing with me and going back to 2013. As folks want to find you or learn more about Gainsight, where can they go?
Yeah, Gainsight.com, or you can find me on NRMEHTA on Twitter, and look forward to getting to meet some of you down the road.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Nick.